What up, Sauce Gang, and welcome back to the channel. Hot Sauce Beats here with another dope reaction for you. That is right, and we are jumping back into that rabbit hole from Oversimplified, and we are checking out World War I Oversimplified Part 2. Last week, we checked out Oversimplified for the very first time, and I was beyond impressed. As I said, I absolutely love history, and finding a channel that makes it this interesting to learn from, I mean, they should be shown Oversimplified in schools because it's entertaining and it is fun to watch. So I'm beyond hyped to check out Part 2, but before we do, make sure you show Oversimplified some love by subscribing to their channel. And if you enjoyed my reaction, please smash that subscribe button because it greatly helps. But enough talking, let's get to reacting and roll that bomb ass intro.
Hot Sauce Beats is finally here. Hot Sauce Beats is finally here. Eat, sleep, make beats. Eat, sleep, make beats.
Hot Sauce Beats. Woo-hoo. Oh, Sauce Gang, let's get our learn on today. Part 2.
With both sides stuck in a hard stalemate, they knew this war wasn't going to be about taking territory, but about simply wearing each other down.
Bruh.
The Allies had plenty of men to expend from its overseas
About to
dominion.
get cray-cray.
And the British also started a naval blockade, so Germany couldn't import stuff, like food. Neither side really wanted a long, grueling war, though, so they both thought of ways to break the deadlock on the Western Front. Idea number one, new frontiers. When the war first...
It is just crazy to me, like, so when we learned about the Archduke Ferdinand or whatever, like, I mean, literally, that dude escaped an assassination attempt and then wound up because he wanted to go check on the dude in the hospital. His driver took a wrong turn and wound up next to one of the failed assassins, and then he got assassinated. Like, that dude was destined to die that day. And it's almost like World War I was destined to happen, which is crazy. I mean, so much death happened.
Broke out. Australia was quick to take German New Guinea. The Allies also quickly jumped on Germany's colonies in Africa, and particularly in German East Africa, locals were enlisted as soldiers and carriers by both sides, leading to a tragic loss of life for the native Africans. Some new combatants entered the war as well. The Allies' new friends were Italy and Japan. Japan was busy building itself an empire, so it was more than happy to take away German islands and colonies in East Asia. Italy actually had an alliance with Germany and Austria-Hungary before the war, but after some tense relations, and then the Allies promising to give them some of Austria-Hungary's stuff, they switched sides.
Dude, it's also crazy how some countries work together or apart in World War I, but World War II completely different. I mean, night and day different.
Italy opened up a front in the mountains here, but like everyone else, they were stuck in stalemate for most of the war. The Central Powers' new friend was a struggling empire in the Middle East. The Ottomans...
The Ottoman Empire.
The Ottoman were divided on whether to actually join the war or not, since they had been exhausted by the recent Balkan Wars. Some of the politicians
I don't know
who did
anything
want
about
to
the
join went
Balkan
off on their
Wars.
own and fired some shells at Russia, and then came back and said, "Whoops, looks like we're at war now." The Ottoman entry into the war was of particular concern to the British, since the Middle East was full of oil, and Britain wanted all of that oil. First, the Ottomans tried to attack Russia in the Caucasus Mountains, but they weren't prepared for the cold, and many of them froze to death. Then they crossed miles of desert to take the Suez Canal from the British, but that failed too.
Hey, Suez Canal! I've been there. So like I said, I used to be in the Navy, and yeah, the Suez Canal, I mean, that's one of the ways that you, without having to go all the way around Africa, that's the main way to get through. Suez Canal is crazy. I saw they had this like massive statue of an AK-47, dude. Like, who does that?
Then the Allies tried to take the Dardanelles at Gallipoli in a long and hard warfare campaign, but that also failed. The Ottomans blamed their initial losses on the ethnic Armenians living within Ottoman territory, and the resulting Armenian genocide led to the deaths of 1.5 million people. Then the Germans sent spies into Afghanistan to try to convince the Arab tribes there to rise up in jihad against the British and attack India. But that plan failed, partly because the spies got bored, brewed their own alcohol, and got drunk, which is a bad thing to do in Afghanistan.
You're there for one job. You had one job to do. And they're like, hey, we don't have any bosses here. Let's get wasted.
These new frontiers hadn't done much to change the war. Aware that the Allies had more men and supplies than them, the Germans knew they had to do something to break the stalemate. Before the war, there was a big conference that set out the rules of modern warfare. No chemical weapons, no killing civilians. Basically, don't be jerks.
Is this when I don't remember. It was either in World War I or World War II. I think it was mustard gas that like it was a no, but you shouldn't you couldn't use it, but they used it anyways.
The Germans held a meeting and decided to be jerks.
Is this
Zeppelin
here?
air raids commenced over British cities. They also started attacking the Allied trenches with chlorine gas, and they used submarines to sink civilian ships. One such civilian ship was the Lusitania, which had 159 Americans on board when it was sunk, further swaying U.S. opinion against the Germans. Not to be completely unfair to the Germans, the Allies also engaged in chemical warfare soon after, and they had been hiding anti-submarine weapons on their civilian ships, which let the Germans justify their attacks. Meanwhile, Austria-Hungary still hadn't dealt with Serbia, so the Central Powers enlisted some help.
Pew pew!
Bulgaria wished it was bigger and was still bitter about losing the Second Balkan War. The Central Powers promised...
So I wonder, does he have... Or I guess I can't see it right now. I wonder if he has anything on the Balkan Wars, because I'd be very interested to learn about... Because I don't know anything. I mean, I think maybe in like a history, one of the, social studies classes back in the day, they like brushed over it for like 20 minutes of a class, but that's it. I don't know anything about the Balkan Wars.
Was to make all of Bulgaria's wildest dreams come true if they helped.
Imagination!
So they signed off, and together they knocked out Serbia. The Serbian troops retreated through Albania, which was neutral but had some ties to Austria-Hungary. So Austria-Hungary entered Albania in a friendly invasion to chase down the Serbians, many of whom escaped by sea. It's 1916, and a lot is happening. As if they didn't have enough enemies already, Germany added one more to the list. Portugal had been getting a bit chummy with the Allies behind the scenes, and Germany didn't like that one bit. Around the same time, the only sea battle of the war happened. Both sides had a new powerful class of battleships called dreadnoughts, but they were so expensive to build that neither side wanted to risk losing them in a battle, so they kept them in port.
They're like, bro, we got these new ships, but they were very expensive, so we're not going to use them. But we have them, but we're not going to use them.
Except for one time when they had a big fight and a bunch of them got damaged, so they didn't try that again. The UK started conscripting men to the army, so they had plenty of reserves, which is just as well because the Western Front was about to get brutal. The longest and one of the bloodiest battles of the war started when the Germans launched an attack around the French city of Verdun. The French defended it desperately, leading to hundreds of thousands of casualties. Under pressure, the French called on its allies to do something.
Did you guys hear that? Hundreds of thousands of casualties. Like, dude, it's just... It is mind-blowing to even try and wrap your mind around the amount of death from wars. Like, people who didn't have to die, dude. They didn't have to die.
Something to draw the Germans' attention away. So the British started their own long and brutal fight, the Battle of the Somme, with 60,000 British casualties on just the first day. It was also here that the British first used one crazy brand new piece of sci-fi technology.
Tank.
The Russians had been getting pushed back further and further into their own territory, but in response to the French call for help, they began a huge offensive, and did really well until they ran out of supplies and got stuck. Seeing how well the Russians had been doing, Romania decided now would be a great time to jump in and win the war, and then they got pounded. The Greeks were fighting amongst themselves about whether to join the war or not. The king liked the Central Powers, while the Prime Minister wanted to join the Allies. After a brief national schism, during which the country split into two, the king finally abdicated and the country reunited. With Allied help, they began a new offensive. Like
this is stuff you would never know. Unless if you watch this, or I mean, unless if you're like a history buff, but them dang Greeks, the Greeks, they split up. They're like, you know what? No, let's not have a civil war during a world war. Let's unite and let's fight for our right to party. Anyway, sorry. My bad.
In the Middle East, Russia was pushing into Ottoman territory from the north. The British had also made a landing in Mesopotamia to protect Persia's oil fields, and they also sent a small army up the Tigris River to try to take Baghdad. But the army got sieged in the town of Kut along the way, and eventually surrendered. A new offensive was launched from the south with all-out desert warfare. The offensive was aided by one famous British officer, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, who helped lead the Arab tribes in a revolt that wreaked havoc on the Ottoman supply lines.
Oh, that was that?
By the time 1917 rolled around, everyone was exhausted.
Is there a movie made about that too, Lawrence of Arabia? I think maybe I'm making that up. I don't know.
There were mutinies in the French army, the German populace was starving, and the war had drained all of Russia's supplies. There was no clear winner, and it was still anyone's war. The only question now was, who was going to break first? And the answer was Russia. Tired of not eating and mad that a crazy magic homeless guy was calling some of the shots, there was an uprising in Petrograd complete with riots and strikes. The riots turned into a full-scale revolution and a new government overthrew the Tsar. Then a few months later, the Bolsheviks overthrew the new government, and they pulled Russia out of the war. This was great news for Germany, who now only had to focus on the Western Front.
Wow.
But there was still one problem. The pesky United States of America was looking increasingly like it was going to join the war.
Let's go, baby.
America had been selling supplies.
Let's go. Welcome to the gun
war,
show.
and was getting super rich off the back of it, meaning it was in fantastic shape and was dangerous to the Germans. So Germany sent a telegram to Mexico saying, wouldn't it be crazy cool if you guys attacked America? But the British intercepted the message, showed it to the Americans, and that was the final straw. American troops began shipping out to Europe. This was terrible news for Germany, and they knew their only hope now was to force France and the UK to surrender before the fresh American troops arrived. It was now or never, so they started one final attack. They converged their troops and hit hard at the Somme and pushed the Allies back. They hit a second time further north, then again and again. With each hit, the Germans were spending more and more resources, while the Allies were getting better and better at repelling their attacks. By the fifth punch, the Allies held the line and even pushed back. With
let's go, baby.
In larger numbers,
let's go, baby.
Oh,
let's go.
That was it.
Get some.
The Central Powers were being pushed back on all fronts.
We got this.
Bulgaria collapsed first, followed by the Ottoman Empire, then Austria-Hungary, and finally on November 11th, 1918, at 11 o'clock, Germany surrendered. At the peace treaty, Germany was forced to reduce its military, accept war guilt, and pay the bill for the war. After indescribable suffering,
17 million people died from that war, dude. And a smidge over that were wounded. That is crazy, dude. And then we're about to get into World War II.
and millions dead, the world learned its lesson and never had such an awful war again.
Until it
for
did.
About 20 years.
Dude, that's crazy. Let's go! Oversimplified, what? So I think the next one, so when you come to Mr. Oversimplified videos, I think, well, chat, so I mean, does he or they, do they cover this in order? Like, should we cover Hitler next and then go into World War II? Or do we go, or will that ruin some of World War II? Let me know. Let me know in the comments of what you guys have seen. What should we do next? I feel like just the way that he's covered it, we should go into Hitler next, maybe? Maybe? All right. Let me bring you in, Sauce Gang. Let me know again in the questions, in the comments, not the questions. What is the next one that we should cover? I'm guessing it's Hitler, but dude, World War I, man. And again, that's before things really start getting crazy in regards to like ocean warfare, aircraft carriers, you know, submarines were just kind of really starting to pick up some traction. So I was in the Navy, I was on submarines. So a lot of this stuff like ocean warfare I studied, but yeah, World War II is where that stuff really starts picking up and kind of getting crazy. So I absolutely love this. Again, I love history. So to have a channel like this, just really cover it and make it enjoyable to learn, which I'm not saying war is enjoyable. I'm just saying a lot of people, you know, a lot of education isn't the most entertaining to learn. So the fact that Oversimplified has found a really unique way for us learning it. Again, I think this stuff should be taught in schools. Like this way of learning. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and make sure you show Oversimplified some love by subscribing to the channel. And if you enjoyed my reaction, please help support the channel by smashing that subscribe and like button. It's absolutely free and it greatly helps out the channel. Enjoy the rest of your day, and remember, it's eat, sleep, and make beats, and as usual, be kind to one another. And that's all I got. Boom, I'm out. Got nothing but love for the Sauce Gang. Peace out. Bye.